Good evening, everyone, and welcome once again to the Writer's Room. I am your host, Kat Rocha, the night editor, and I can't talk this evening, but with me, as always, is...
J.Ishiro Finney, author and alien in a human suit, and apparently I'll be an alien out of a human suit since you guys keep requesting it.
He's naked this evening.
No. They keep requesting that I do shows as the alien and talk about that stuff, so guess it's going to happen. It's inevitable.
We'll have to change your avatar.
Oh, I do. Yeah. But anyway, we've got a very cool guest with us tonight.
Yes, we do. An amazingly cool guest.
We've heard your constant questions about what good superhero books are out there in the fiction world. And we've gotten your questions over and over again about how to write it and how to approach it. We got someone who's actually doing it.
Yes.
Morgon Newquist.
Hi. I'm glad I can come on and kind of tell people what we're doing over in the novel realm with superheroes.
Well, as I was mentioning behind the scenes, there's a lot of interest in it. Just nobody knows where to start. But I think before we go any further, why don't we first just introduce your book that you've just released called Heroes Fall.
Okay, yeah. My first full-length novel is Heroes Fall. It actually launches our Heroes Unleash universe, which is a shared book universe like Marvel and DC have their shared comics universe. And it's a book that I had wanted to write for a long time. And I guess in like the pre-show you were talking about getting comics going and that kind of thing. And I actually wrote it as a book originally because I really wanted to tell the story, but I didn't think that I would be able to get an actual comic book together for it because I didn't really know anything about that and I didn't have an artist friend. So I thought, hey, I will just write it as a book instead. So that's how it kind of came about.
That's really cool. So gotta ask the question that a lot of people ask, are you more a Marvel girl or a DC girl?
I don't know. I kind of like both. I do not read a ton of comics. I've read some. I really came in through the movies, is how I kind of was introduced to superheroes.
Well, what's your first love then? I mean, a lot of us, it was reading X-Men in high school, but what was your first love of heroes?
It's really cliche, but I really liked Batman. That was my favorite early on.
The Gen X hero.
Hey, if you're gonna, start somewhere, start with the best, right?
Yes, the Batman the Animated Series with a moral compass for an entire generation.
Mm-hmm. I had actually not seen that, but I have been watching it in the evenings when I write, actually, and enjoying that one.
Oh, you actually had not seen the animated series previously?
No. I totally grew up as like a book reading sci-fi person, so I didn't really do superheroes at all.
Oh wow! So what was your first introduction to Batman then?
The movies. So like I'm totally way late into the fandom.
No, that's perfectly natural. I mean, I know for me, my dad was itching to take me to see the Tim Burton Batman film like the day it came out. So
how old were you?
I don't even remember. What year was that?
89?
89?
I think it was 89.
So I was 7.
So you went and saw the Tim Burton Batman at age 7?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so tell us a bit about the story. I mean, it's about a young woman named Victoria and, well, you go.
Yeah, so I wanted to take a slightly different tactic. My main character is named Victoria, like you said, and she does not have a superhero name. Like, she's really not interested in being a superhero, and not in the sense that she doesn't want to save people and help people. She just doesn't want to put on the costume, to have the name, to have all the bravado that comes with it. That despite having a superpower, she just wants to kind of help her community and do what's right instead of doing it for a bunch of attention and as a persona. And it's kind of billed as a mystery book because it follows her through kind of unraveling this tapestry of this huge event that happened 20 years before in the universe. Where
the book, as I've been reading it, starts with this just apocalyptic downtown battle where the the Trinity of heroes of this world are just in this battle to the death, and it goes horribly wrong, and then it picks up 20 years later, right?
Yes. So it's the event is called the Rampage, and it's when a member of the Triumvirate, his name is Achilles, and he's supposed to be, so he kind of parallels Superman a little bit. So if you think of him as this universe's Superman, where he seems to have this total breakdown and tears apart half the city. And that is just like a massive in-universe event. And then if you look at the other books we have, that's like a marker that all of them kind of refer back to, and a lot of the stories.
So is Pendragon the Batman of the world then, or just your own thing?
No, the Banshee is actually the Batman of the world, even though she's a woman.
She was a cool character. I kind of a shame she got killed, but
yeah, I like the Banshee. She's her influence, I guess, on the books is not done, even though she's basically dead from the beginning.
Okay, so we've got a question from Owen Lister.
Owen asked, do you know of our Lord and Savior Guyver?
I do not.
I'm sorry, Owen. Just
No.
no luck this time. No love.
No.
Okay, so anyway, continue.
Yeah, and so this is all the backdrop of the story. There's a prologue with it in it, and then the rest of it is there's something shady going on that Victoria kind of stumbles into, and she's got to figure out what it is to help her community, and then just keeps getting deeper and deeper into all the stuff that is ultimately tied back into why the rampage happened at the beginning of the book.
Well, one thing that I really liked about one of the elements you just put in there was that very early you make it clear that the people that have abilities in this world, it isn't necessarily a great life, that your options pretty much are to just be quiet and not let anyone know you have super abilities, get into the superhero game, and apparently that's a very brutal career path, and that you're constantly competing for the spotlight, or you end up falling into crime. So, and then you had this whole thing where there were all these kids in kind of a children's shelter, a kind of a lost boys home, to kind of protect them from that sort of thing happening. How'd that come about?
So this is kind of interesting, but a little weird. I don't know if anybody played City of Heroes.
Oh, yeah.
MMO a long time ago. So maybe that was my first introduction to superheroes rather than the Batman movie. I don't know. But I played that. And then, I was just running around on my character. And you had the thug enemies, right? Like you could go and fight thug enemies like you do in an MMO. And they were just hanging out in their alley and having a conversation. And they weren't doing anything to anybody. Yeah, it's a video game, so they exist there for you to go and kill and level up your character. So that's their purpose. But but they weren't harassing people. They weren't committing vandalism. They were just hanging out. And then like the dialogue option of it was, "Oh man, I hope they don't find me and beat me up," or something like that. And it really struck me. This is like, well, what if that kind of triggered the whole universe? Actually, like, what happens if being a superhero is a career and a thing, and what happens to kind of the under people when people who don't have powers, the people who maybe aren't super important or anything like that, when everybody suddenly wants to find their spotlight for the criminals they've taken down. There's not going to be enough for everybody. So does that mean that kind of the way you deal with simple robberies or something is going to escalate because you've got all kinds of people with superpowers trying to deal with it and then make their name for themselves? And then that's kind of where the whole world came out of.
It sounds more like the heroes are almost a menace in that regard. You get a beating for jaywalking. You're going to get roughed up and thrown in prison by Superman because you didn't wear your mask today.
Shit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I don't think everybody would be that way, but I think it definitely has the potential to evolve into that. And that's kind of what the series touches on some. And I mean, and I kind of came at it from the perspective of, well, I didn't want to go super dark or nihilist with it, but if real people were going to be superheroes, then what would matter to them and what would they want out of it? And so it kind of evolved into this, well, being a superhero means being a celebrity. And there are an awful lot of nice perks that come with being a celebrity. So I'm sure there are a lot of people that would maybe do some not so great things to get that.
Well, your hero, Victoria, she wears a hoodie and yoga pants and boots.
She does.
And she doesn't have a hero name. She doesn't even let people know she exists. She just goes out and kicks ass.
Yeah, and she works at the gas station.
So she doesn't play the game.
No, and she actually made a conscious choice to not play the game after she saw that was, saw that and had some other things happen to her. She was like, well, I don't really want to do this.
So how does this all tie? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to ask, because for me, my favorite superhero stories always have some sort of morality that they are questioning. Batman, it's how far till, he himself becomes the monsters that he's fighting against. Or, Peter Parker, of course, with great power comes great responsibility. Do you have a moral theme for your books?
For this one, definitely. It's about it's about doing what's best morally and for everybody, even if it's the worst personal choice for you. So it makes you sacrifice a lot to do the right thing, but it's better for everybody in the long run.
Owen says, oh, good. You're not going the wannabe Alan Moore route. We don't need another Watchmen clone. Looking at you, Zack Snyder.
Oh, no, this is probably taboo, but I hate Watchmen. I mean, I say that, and sort of the overarching plot of mine is very similar to Watchmen. But one of the things we do at my publishing company, and that's in all of these books, is like, we don't want to be nihilist, and we really want heroes that are heroes. And
well, let me ask you then, maybe this is the right time to bring it up, that your publishing company that you do with your husband, in a sense, has kind of become a umbrella for, frankly, a bunch of Catholic writers who aren't necessarily welcome. Not that their books are Catholic per se, but that they're just Catholics writing books. Does Catholic morality kind of play a heavy role in your novel?
It doesn't so much in this first one, but it's coming into the sequels more.
Okay, let me ask another way then. Does it play the same role in your story as it does for Batman? Because that's one thing that a lot of people seem to overlook, is he is a Catholic hero.
Same with Daredevil.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does. It will for one of the other characters in it big time, but I don't want to mention it because it's a pretty big spoiler. It's more for that character than for Victoria. And yeah, the Catholicism will come in really big for him.
So how does this tie into this larger world that what you manage this, and tell the audience about this shared world you're doing?
So we have a shared world called Heroes Unleashed, and it basically works like how DC or Marvel would run their comics, right? So there are a bunch of different authors in it. It's not just me, and they each have their own series and their own hero. And then some of them take place in the same spot, but it's mostly kind of like, Batman has Gotham City and Superman has Metropolis, and it works like that. And then it references the world, like like I mentioned, the Rampage is a big kind of reference point that everyone uses. And you'll see little Easter eggs of characters or places or something from other series in the books. And we all work together to kind of feed that in. And eventually I'd like to get to the point where we're actually writing crossovers together with the different characters, but we're not there yet. We have to get everybody.
So you're doing it right. You're establishing a foundation. You're letting the characters build their own mythologies before forcing them into adventures.
Yes, that is definitely what I wanted to do, because they need to everyone needs to know who they are, and they need to have had a plot and an arc and everything before we kind of start shoving them together.
Wait.
Right. What are you looking for?
There we go.
There we go. Okay, I hate saying it this way, but is it canon that Bruce Wayne is Catholic? I recall reading a discussion that he was considered Jewish.
No. I realize there's been a lot of revisionism over the years, and
Is that based on the image where he's naked?
And recently they've tried to turn him into an atheist, which I'm an atheist, and I found that thoroughly offensive for him to rob him of such a key character.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, that's critical to who he is, and one of the things that makes him unique. But I mean, I remember the animated series back in the 90s. It was like the second episode, they made it very clear
He's Catholic.
He's Catholic. He went and saw a priest for help.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, damn, okay, that's kind of gutsy. I think nowadays it would be even more gutsy.
I've seen some frames of, it goes around Catholic Twitter of him going to confession and that kind of thing in the comics too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's gone to confession. Well, not only that, but his sense of morality, and just the fact that his entire life is about suffering. That's very much so. I know you're Catholic, so
he's carrying a cross is essentially what he's doing all his life.
Yeah. He's suffering, and he feels like he can never redeem himself, but that doesn't stop him from continuing the fight. I mean, tell me how that's not Catholic.
Yeah.
And Wolf 10 also said that offended him as well.
So yeah. So is that are you actually taking submissions for this shared universe, or is this sort of an invite only?
So far, it has been invite only, but I think we're hoping to open it up to pitches soon. Like, you would send us what your character is and what you want to do over your series. Probably by the end of the year. One of the original reasons we kind of did it this way is, I know you guys mostly do comics and we do books, is that it's really good to release books as much as you possibly can, but it's really hard to write that many books. So if we split it amongst authors and had it all in the same world where people would be interested, then it's like, okay, now we suddenly have a bunch more books that we can get.
Which is smart.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, just to let you know, maybe if you want to get a full history, we actually did an episode about our experience in publishing. And we had a good 5-year period where we were doing both lit and comics. And then the election happened, and we pretty much got blackballed from the industry, and we've been trying to recover. And yeah, we've actually left comics, and I'm focusing almost entirely on prose now.
Okay. I'm sorry it happened that way.
Keep moving forward.
Yeah.
So how many books currently do you have published in your shared universe?
There are 5, and each one of them is the start of the different series. And coming in the next month or two, the second book in one of them will be coming out. And then we've got, 1, 2, 3 other new series that are also going to launch from it, along with sequels going out.
Okay, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Thomas Plutarch, I guess.
Plutarch.
Yeah, Plutarch.
I just went over to his spot on Amazon. Are all these books in the shared universe?
Yes. So Thomas Plutarch is our Lemony Snicket. He is not a real person.
I
He's
suspect.
a character that appears in some of the later novels. He hasn't been in any of them so far. He's the historian. He's a superhero that has perfect recall. So he's writing down the universe things. He's writing down everything that he's seen and learned about what's happening with these heroes. And that way it gives everybody an easy way, especially on Amazon, to find all of the books.
Is he like writing for a fictional news blog in your superhero world, like the Bugle?
Yeah, he's an investigative like reporter, but he does more freelance, like more of the modern stuff, like blogs and like video live casting and that kind of thing.
That's a really clever way of doing it. It also helps keep all of the books under one umbrella because, well, as we were discussing before, Amazon's algorithms are not very reliable sometimes on being able to connect the dots. So that's a great way to do that.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, I don't know why they don't do this, but Amazon doesn't let you search books by a publisher either. So if we were trying to do everything in like a big shared universe and people were coming to us through Amazon instead of our website, it would not be easy at all for them to find everything. So this helped with that too.
Smart, very smart.
Very smart, because yeah, I've ran into that problem as well, where people were to search 01 Publishing, they don't get all of our books. So that's very clever.
Yeah, they should search Kat Rocha, the editor. No, that's the only way to get them all.
Yeah.
Excellent. So unless you have more to talk about on that or anyone, I would actually at this point start encouraging people in the audience to ask questions, especially regarding heroes in the lit world. But in the meantime, in your bio, it says that you caused an international incident in Central America.
I did.
Oh, what happened?
So my father is a scientist for NASA.
She lives in Huntsville.
Oh, see, you and I, my dad was an engineer for aerospace. So
okay. Yeah, we have a lot of aerospace engineers here too. So
nice.
My dad is actually, so this probably comes with some negative connotations, but my dad is a climate scientist. So he did a lot of the original work on like urban heat islands and that kind of thing. And when my parents were first married, he did a lot of work in Costa Rica where they would fly over the jungle and take heat pictures and do all this kind of stuff. And so he was in Costa Rica doing the flyovers of the jungle to take the pictures and study the heat maps and everything. When my mom went into labor with me early, and I'm their first kid, so he basically came back to the city and paid this taxi driver like an enormous amount of money, be like, get me back to the city by this time so I can catch this flight and go home. And so he did that, but there was a lot of tension between Costa Rica and Nicaragua at that point, and then they were flying near the border. And when he disappeared overnight, like this journalist investigated it and then started trying to like, oh, was this person actually spying for the United States and causing all these problems? Because all of a sudden, and so there was this big like incident that the diplomats had to get involved with and everything because he left the country so fast to get back home for my birth.
So is your dad the kind of a climate scientist that makes everyone upset, or the kind of climate scientist who does other stuff?
Well, that would depend on who you talk to. He mostly does things like urban heat islands, and he does a lot on pollen and that kind of stuff now. But he works with, I don't know how much you keep up on climate science, but he works with the University of Alabama in Huntsville, which has also made a bunch of people mad because they do a lot of questioning of the
so he's one of the experts. So is he one of the experts that isn't part of the consensus?
Yes,
Good
usually.
for you. No. I was curious because now I know what I can say, because I've read a lot about the experts who have been forced out and aren't part of the consensus. And
He doesn't really do the climate work anymore, and I have to wonder if that's part of it. I don't know. I
wouldn't doubt it.
asked him about it. I remember, so it's just funny. I remember hearing about global warming and that kind of thing when I was really little, like when it was the first kind of fringe stuff that was coming through. My dad would talk about it, and it's kind of funny.
So he's like the one who's like, look, guys.
About, I mean, I have not talked to him about it recently, but I think he basically kind of sits in the camp where he has actually seen and even taken in a lot of the data, and he feels like that there's not expansive enough data to be making the very specific predictions that people are making.
That's what
he's a scientist.
Yes, well, your dad said the same thing.
Yeah, there's not enough data yet. We haven't been looking at it long enough. We've been having like good enough equipment.
And didn't he say that a lot of the data gathering methods were faulty?
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, well, we should talk about that. We've got a question for you.
Saul Leibowitz says, is Catholicism a major theme for your stories, or is it something more in the background?
So with this particular book, it's a little bit more in the background, and it will come a little bit more to the forefront, I guess, in later books. But the superhero books are not really where I am bringing tons of that in.
So no Daredevil type plot.
There will be more of a Daredevil plot later on, like I said, with one of the characters, where it's very much like you were saying about Batman, except he doesn't start out as a Catholic. He kind of becomes one to deal with all of the stuff that has happened to him, and then evolves with that.
Very cool. LK says, a general question. What benefits do you get from having your work available on Kindle Unlimited?
Oh, that's a great question.
Oh, that's kind of a loaded question. So we are not necessarily the biggest fans of Kindle Unlimited anymore, but when Kindle Unlimited was doing really well, it is a lot easier to convince readers to try and give your book a chance when they view it as free, in quotation marks. I mean, they're paying monthly for it, but they don't have to pay for the actual book. So when somebody's looking at your stuff, they seem to be a lot more willing, like, oh, well, I'll just go and read the first 50 pages and see if I like it on Kindle Unlimited than they would be if they had to actually pay out of their pocket for it.
Okay, so I've been reading your book via Kindle Unlimited.
Okay.
Are you going to be paid very well, or what's the payoff for that?
I can't remember the exact payout for it, but most books, it ends up paying about 2/3 of what purchasing it would be. It's based on page read.
So if you're an unknown, it actually benefits you, but if you're an established name, no.
Yeah, I think that's the case. We're getting there's something really, this is very like publisher business talk. There's something really weird going on with Kindle Unlimited where people aren't getting as many reads as they used to, and it's across the board, and no one is really sure quite what's going on, and there's some theories for it. But
do you think they're fudging the numbers?
I think that's a possibility. I think there's a theory that Amazon's refusing to police categories has made it where people have a really hard time finding what they want to read, so they're not they're not paying for the service anymore, and there are a couple other things like that. But I mean, it's generally a good thing. I feel like it is really hard to build a fan base using Kindle Unlimited versus selling books.
Yeah,
so
I would say probably until you're a known quantity, when you've got your audience, that probably Unlimited's the way to go. It would certainly encourage me to read a lot. It does encourage me to read a lot of unknowns.
Yeah. There's definitely benefits to it. And most of our books are still in Kindle Unlimited. We've been kind of experimenting going wide, but we found that even going wide and doing like advertising, that everybody still buys it through Amazon instead of through, Barnes and Noble or Kobo or whatever. So then if you're just going to be exclusive to Amazon, then you might as well put it in Kindle Unlimited.
Anime Acid Trip says, if magic is real, would it be regulated? And if so, would necromancy be legal?
In my universe, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So the background on Heroes Unleashed is that there were not always superheroes, that there was one particular event that happened that gave everybody their powers. And it tended to give people powers that matched with their personality or interests. So not totally, but like Achilles was a weightlifter beforehand, and then when he became Achilles, he got super strength. So there is actually magic, because one of the villains in the next book is like a voodoo guy who does have magic, but it's a little restricted. And there aren't any official laws against necromancy, but I'm not sure that people would be particularly fond of it. And
I would imagine it's illegal to dig the grave up in the first place. So.
Yeah. And we do have the Atlantean Knights series has magic in it. It's like Doctor Strange. It has Atlantean magic. So we do have some other straight magic too.
Yeah. Owen says, have you ever read manga like One Punch Man, My Hero Academia, or Dragon Ball Z?
I haven't read any manga in a long time, but I do watch My Hero Academia.
Good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's probably the best superhero arc right now available. And they've got, the Western superhero arc better than the West right now.
They definitely do. And I think, and we tried, we really tried to do this on Heroes Unleashed, even if it's maybe kind of like gritty and dark sometimes, is they really capture the idea of inspirational kind of hero not being like Watchmen.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing to not be like right now, isn't it? Is Watchmen.
Yeah.
LK says, what tips or guides do you have for writing good dynamic action in like an engrossing fight scene or things to avoid?
So immediately that comes to mind for things to avoid is to be really careful with your word use. It's really easy to keep using the same sort of fighty action words over and over again. And if you do that, then it makes it really boring no matter what is actually going on in the scene. So for writing dynamic fight scenes, this is a little difficult for me because I actually have done martial arts for a long time. So I kind of have an actual sense of different moves and the way to do things like that.
What discipline?
What I do specifically is called Shin Nagare Karate. It's before MMA was a thing, but it's a mixed style out of the southeastern United States. It combines kickboxing, karate, and jiu-jitsu.
Nice.
Okay, so sorry for interrupting you with that laugh, but we got a comment that just got a laugh from us.
Owen asked if we had asked you about Guyver yet.
No, Aloise asked if Owen.
Oh, Aloise asked Owen
if he'd harassed you yet about Guyver.
Yeah.
He did. He asked me about Guyver, which I unfortunately do not know anything about.
Okay, so I think that's it for the questions right now. What are we doing? Oh, geez, we're doing great on time. Mm-hmm. So let's see. Let me get your bio back.
How about that one?
Oh, you're right. That is a question.
Saul asks, it sounds as if your superheroes are more in the classic type, such as the Golden or Silver Age DC. Am I correct?
You are correct. My husband was actually, when he was, working with someone trying to find an artist to do our covers, he was very much like, we need someone that can do this kind of style of artwork. So, yes.
Nice. Yeah, actually, I was going to ask, who did your cover? It's really nice.
So my cover was an artist out of Poland. Her name is Kazia Supleka, and she does a lot of other superhero art. I believe you can find her on DeviantArt, and that's how we found her, actually. And she did the art for my cover, and then she did the art for the Hollow City cover. And then we found a different guy at ebooklaunch.com that has done all the other Heroes Unleashed artwork and the titling.
Nice.
Okay, real quick update. Yes, this is how much we have a relationship with our fans. Well, welcome in, Elton. Sorry you're a little late, but since you yourself are writing superhero stories, this is someone you may want to ask questions to.
Yes.
Okay, so what was it like living in Rocket Town? I actually went there once in junior high for the, I guess what, the pre-space camp, not the actual space camp.
Okay. So we moved here when I was little, and then I moved away for college, and I moved back. And I actually really love it. It's kind of a different place, and it's grown a lot since I was a kid. It's actually getting pretty big. But I like it. There's a lot of, fun sciencey things to do. You do have to deal with a lot of engineers.
But you know what? Engineers spend a lot of money at conventions. If you've got a table at a convention and you're in the engineers town, you're going to do good.
I bet. We have it's kind of funny. We have this Bridge Street. It's one of the fancy outdoor shopping centers. And when it first opened, there was a big to do about all these trendy restaurants they'd open there because the average income in Huntsville is really high because everybody is like an engineer or an aerospace engineer or a scientist. And then so they were like, oh man, people have all kinds of money to spend at our trendy restaurants. And then the engineers didn't go to the trendy restaurants. That's not spend their money on.
Yeah, my dad would just rather go to Taco Bell, honestly, than go to those fancy restaurants.
Yeah, they spend their money at comic shops and Barnes and Noble and stuff, not on weird concept restaurants.
Exactly. Endless Nocturne says, so are you focused on combat techniques? Do you also put a lot of thought into interesting powers, or how Jojo is it?
So if you know martial arts and you read Victoria, specifically her fight scene, she knows martial arts. So those are all actual techniques. I really tried to avoid doing the thing of like naming them all. Like, oh, she's going to go do an Osotogari here, because the readership is not everyone is going to know that, and I feel like that's really like fourth wall breaking. But I did actually make an effort that her stuff is all actual techniques. And that's then cool. The interesting powers I did. There's so one of the characters in the book has, I think it's a really interesting power that's not super common, but it's also a spoiler, so I don't really want to detail it out. But I did, and I spent a lot of time, like I didn't go full on spreadsheet, but like, okay, if a person with this power is going to fight with a person with this power, what are all the logical plus interesting things that they would be able to do that would make sense to fight against one another. So it's not just like fist fights the whole time.
I'm glad to hear that you did that, because then it's not just, well, what would seem cool. You're actually you've actually factored in actual, to use DBZ terms, power levels for everybody. And if you do it in that way, to my thinking, you can have somebody who on paper may be underpowered against another person, but if they're smart about it, they'd still be able to at least put up a good fight, if not win. So that's good to hear that you actually thought about it that way.
Yeah, I put a lot of work in the fight scenes in it because I knew writing a novel versus a comic book that was going to make or break the book. Right, in a comic, you can, or even a superhero movie, you can just watch it and see it, and everybody enjoys it. But in the book, it's I think a little harder to express that and explain it in a way that is as exciting and engaging as looking at it drawn on a piece of paper.
For my own question with that, one of the dynamic things about Batman is that he is a mortal man amongst gods. Do you have characters who are just normal people who are able to, stand with those with superpowers?
So the Banshee is actually one of those. She does not. She's one of the original triumvirate superheroes as mentioned in the beginning. And she does not have any superpowers. She really is. I kind of thought it would be interesting to do a female Batman because that changes his dynamics a lot, and that's what she is. She uses technology and the same kind of fright and stage tricks because she doesn't have any superpowers.
But she does have a cool costume. I noticed that in the description.
She does. We have. Oh, I should find it. We did. Do you guys know Andy Duggan?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, he's a comic book artist that we rent. I think he might keep mostly the Southeast, and he did character cards for the Triumvirate for us, and he also did an art piece of the Rampage for us.
Oh, cool.
I need to figure out where they are, and maybe I can send them to you to put in the show links. But we do have concept art and stuff for the Banshee that looks pretty cool.
Nice. Panda Power asks, how do you build an audience if you're broke? Have a face for radio, a voice for silent film, and the charisma of a dead skunk.
So if you want to really break it down, building an audience is just convincing people you're cool. And I don't mean it in that sense, like you have to be celebrity cool or anything like that. You have to find your niche and make people like you, and it's that easy and that hard.
Panda, and bribery never hurts. Oh wait, you have no money, never mind.
Elton asks, don't know if people asked this before, but how hard was it to bring the comic hero action to literature form? And when do you know a story is working?
When I know a story is working is really just gut, right? Like I read back through it and then see where it's sagging or where it doesn't seem to make sense or where it gets boring. And I use a beat sheet to write, so it kind of gives me a little bit of guidance on that. And I work a lot of time before I actually start writing. I'm not like a slave to the outline, but I work to write to the beat sheet. So, I always know what emotional or action beat needs to come next, so there's not any wandering.
Explain to the audience a beat sheet.
So a beat sheet it's a sort of, the way I use it is sort of a modified outline. And so instead of it saying that, okay, chapter 1, this happens, chapter 2, this happens, you add an extra step to it, and you're like, okay, chapter 1, and then this is the introduction, and you have different names for different types of scenes in the order there's going to be in. Like, there's a book, it's called Save the Cat, and it's a screenwriting book, but I use that to write my novels, actually. So you'll have things in your outline like, okay, this is the dark night of the soul, like the spot in the book where everything just looks terrible and nothing's going right, and you think you're going to lose, and you gotta, pull out the strength to keep going. And by using a beat sheet when I write, then I know kind of emotionally and everything where everything should go, and it helps keep it on plot and not dragging, I think.
That's really good. That's a great tool. I know I've had a lot of people, asking me, well, how can I keep on? And I tell them, well, you got to plot your plot. So a beat sheet sounds exactly like what that does.
I do, yeah. And I find it helps me when I'm thinking up the plot too, right? I feel like I spend less time just like staring at the wall, having absolutely no idea where to go next. So like I mentioned earlier, the Dark Night of the Soul. Okay, I know this part of the book is the Dark Night of the Soul. What would be the Dark Night of the Soul for this particular character based on everything that's already happening? And I think it helps a lot.
So the beat sheet helps, keep away the bane of every writer, which is a writer's block.
For the most part, yeah. Sometimes I still kind of end up with like, well, I don't know exactly how I'm going to get from here to there, even though I have it all plotted out. But I find it helps me write a whole lot faster.
Very nice. Aloise said to Morgan, do you happen to know what Krav Maga is? I've seen it featured in a Korean manhwa called Girls of the Wild. Haven't seen it in fiction anywhere else.
Yes, I do know what Krav Maga is. It is the sort of martial art of the Israeli army. There are a bunch of them, of schools for that in the United States, and I'm really surprised that you have only seen it one place, because it's kind of like the in martial art right now.
What, like an Archer?
I haven't seen that.
The Archer television the cartoon that they're constantly mentioning that, they don't do that kung fu stuff.
No, that Archer is a master in Krav Maga.
Yeah.
Okay.
Saul says, is there any plan to expand your books and to say graphic novels, or are they just going to stay as novels?
I would really like to do graphic novels. I think our actual kind of long-term in the distance plan was that if we publish these books and we have a fan base for them, that we could crowdfund a graphic novel a lot easier than if we just kind of upfront, when nobody knew about it or knew the stories or the characters, tried to launch something to do that. So eventually, yes, we'd really like to do that, but we got to kind of keep working our way that direction first.
Cool.
Okay, this is going to be the last question.
Okay, Anime Acid Trip asks, I have ideas for comics and novels, but I'm a bit afraid of writing for novels because I'm not confident in my writing yet. How do I get over this fear, or where do I get started?
So this sounds really annoying, but you really just have to write. Like, you have to practice, and you have to know everybody has their own process and their own way of thinking. And the more you write, the more you figure out how you work. And then you can write better, and then feel more comfortable writing. I mean, you don't have to show anybody anything that you do in the beginning. I really liked writing as a kid, so I had entire folders full of, kid stories that no one has ever seen. If you're kind of feel stuck writing or afraid to write, there's a book called No Plot, No Problem. And this is actually the book that launched NaNoWriMo, if you know what that is, the National Writing Month. And it has a lot of encouragement and exercises and stuff in it to teach you just keep writing, even if you're not very confident in what you're writing, even if you think it's terrible, because you can't fix something that's not already there. Right? You just have to write it, even if it's terrible, and then you can always come back later and do something about it. But if you never even write it out, then you can't edit it. You can't do anything with it.
Yeah, if it never gets to the page, you've got nothing to edit. Mm-hmm. So, well, we are coming to the end of the hour, mm-hmm. So why don't we wrap this up with one more time. Explain to the audience why they should buy your book.
Well, they should buy my book because it is awesome superhero fiction, of which there is not a lot. And maybe if you're kind of disillusioned with what's going on with the comic scene right now, you can give the novels a try. It's not quite the same, but we're working hard to have heroes that are heroes and avoid message fiction and just have a good time with it.
Excellent. And where can we, other than looking down in the description, where can we find you?
Okay, so we are on Amazon, like we mentioned earlier. If you search Thomas Plutarch as an author, and that's Plutarch like the Greek writer, you can find all the Heroes Unleashed books. And then you can also find all of our stuff on silverempire.org.
Excellent. Well, I really want to thank you for coming on and spending the hour with us.
Yeah, definitely. This has been great.
Hopefully, the audience has been enlightened some about this burgeoning world of superhero comics that aren't going to preach at you in print. And just again, thanks again for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really excited about superhero novels. I know it's kind of a little weird niche thing right now, but I hope it can really grow to be a lot more than that.
A lot of people are asking for them. I think you guys need your own category on Amazon. I think is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
We have a category, but everybody else won't stay out of it. So maybe bother Amazon and tell them to police their categories. Oh, I should mention this. I'm sorry. I totally forgot. So if you go to let me check. So there is a website that is compiling all of the superhero fiction that is out. So you can submit books to it if you find one that's not on it, but it also divides everything up into categories and that kind of thing. Let me make sure I'm giving you the right address.
Oh, nice.
Sorry, one second. It's called Superhero Fiction. And they're working really hard to try and make sure everybody can find the superhero fiction they are looking for. And just to search a superhero fiction doesn't bring it up. I will email it later once I find it, but it's they're called superherofiction.net.
I'll add it to the show notes when you send it.
What variation the spelling is on that. But if you go there, Heroes Unleashed is on there, but there's a bunch of the other superhero fan fiction books that are out. They kind of collect them all and put them in an easy spot to find. And they even divide it up. It's nice. They have tags. You can be like, okay, I want a female lead superhero. I want, mystery. I want this kind. So you can kind of browse it in detail.
I'm really glad to hear that because, as you said, there's no way to find, books like this. And for your own books, I greatly appreciate the fact that you're taking the superhero concept and you're putting your own spin on it. I've seen so many people where it really comes down to, well, this is my Batman fanfic, this is my Venom fanfic. And I definitely do, from what Ishii has told me, from what he's told me about what he's read, no, you have your own unique take on the superhero genre, which I greatly appreciate.
Oh yeah, okay, I found it.
Oh, cool.
www.superhero-fiction.com. And
that's easy enough.
Yeah.
Superhero-fiction.com or .net?
.com.
.com. And is it like hyphen or is it underscore?
It's not an underscore. I guess it's a hyphen.
Okay.
All right. Well, I am J.Ishiro Finney, author and alien in a human suit. And join me next week as I start appearing as simply the alien.
And I am the night editor, Kat Rocha, and definitely you can find us at night, or you can find me at nighteditor.com, or find all of Ishii's books on Amazon or on 01publishing.com.
All right.
And oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, my name is Morgon Newquist, and I run Silver Empire Publishing, which you can find at silverempire.org, and all our superhero stuff is there, as well as everything else we're working on.
Good night, guys.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.